In Chapter 16, we're adding and subtracting fractions. Lesson 1 is adding and subtracting like fractions. If you notice, like fractions means the denominators are the same. So in order to add fractions with like denominators, you simply have to add the numerators. 2 plus 1 would be 3. The denominator stays the same. So 2/3 plus 1/3 would equal 3/3. But after every problem, we need to come and ask ourselves these questions. First one is the answer improper? 3/3 is an improper fraction since the numerator is not less than the denominator. Anytime the numerator and denominator are the same, the fraction equals 1 whole. And 1 cannot be reduced, so 1 would be our answer. In number 8, we're adding 1/6 plus 3/6. 1 plus 3 is 4. Denominator stays the same, so our answer is 4/6. Then we ask, is the fraction improper? 4/6 is not improper because 4 is less than 6. Then we ask, can it be reduced? To see if a fraction can be reduced, we have to ask ourselves what can go into 4 that could also go into 6. Since 2 can go into both 4 and 6, we do have to reduce the fraction. It reduces to 2/3, which is in simplest form. To subtract is the same idea. We're going to subtract numerators. Since the denominators are the same, we just have to subtract 7 minus 1, which is 6. Denominator stays in 8. Then we ask the two questions again. Is 6/8 improper? 6/8 is not improper since 6 is less than 8. Then we have to ask, can it be reduced? So here we'll ask, can any number go into both 6 and 8 evenly? Since 2 can go into both 6 and 8, we have to reduce the fraction. It reduces to 3/4. 3/4 cannot be reduced, so 3/4 is our simplest form answer. For number 11, we subtract. 4 minus 1 is 3. The denominator stays the same, so 4/5 minus 1/5 equals 3/5. 3/5 is not improper and it cannot be reduced, so 3/5 is our final answer. To add and subtract unlike fractions, we first have to find common denominators and write like fractions. Since 3 and 6 are different denominators, we're going to have to find what their least common denominator is, write the like fractions, then we will be able to add. So we start with the higher denominator, 6, and we ask, can 3 go into 6? Since 3 can go into 6, 6 is our least common denominator. 3 times 2 is 6, 2 times 2 is 4, so 2/3 equals 4/6. On the second add-in, if the denominator stays the same, then the numerator stays the same, and now we're ready to add since we now have like fractions. 4 plus 1 is 5, the denominator stays the same, so 4/6 plus 1/6 is 5/6. Then we ask these same two questions. First of all, is 5/6 improper? It's not, since 5 is less than 6, and it cannot be reduced, so 5/6 would be our final answer. Number 10, again we have unlike fractions, so our first step is going to be to find the least common denominator and write the like fractions. We start with 4 since it's the higher denominator, and we ask, can 3 go into 4? It can't, so we have to continue listing our multiples of 4 until we find a number that 3 can go into. 4 times 2 is 8, but 3 cannot go into 8. 4 times 3 is 12. 3 can go into 12, so 12 is our least common denominator. Now we have to write the like fractions. 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times 4 is 12. 2 times 4 is 8. Now we're ready to add these like fractions. 3/12 plus 8/12 would give us 11/12. And we ask, is 11/12 improper? No, it's not, because 11 is less than 12. And can it be reduced? No, it cannot, because there's no number that can go into both 11 and 12 evenly. So 11/12 is our answer for number 10. Number 12, it's a subtraction problem. If you notice again, we have unlike denominators, so we're going to have to find the least common denominator before we can subtract. Start with the larger denominator, 12, and we ask, can 3 go into 12? since 3 can go into 12, we will use 12 as the least common denominator. Here, if the denominator stays the same, then the numerator stays the same. 3 times 4 is 12. 1 times 4 is 4. So now we're subtracting 7 twelfths minus 4 twelfths. Again, we subtract numerators only. 7 minus 4 is 3. So it's 3 twelfths. Then we ask, is 3 twelfths improper? Which it's not. And can it be reduced? So we see, is there any number that can go into both 3 and 12 evenly? Since 3 can go into both 3 and 12, we do have to reduce it to 1/4, which is in simplest form. If we have a subtraction problem like number 14, and we're trying to subtract a fraction from a whole number, the first thing we're going to have to do is change that whole number into a fraction. If we have one whole and we need to change it into a fraction, we're going to look at this denominator in the subtrahend. Since the denominator is a 6, it's telling us to take this one whole and cut it into 6 pieces. So if you take a whole and cut it into 6 pieces, you would have all 6 pieces. 6/6 equals a whole. So all you're doing is renaming the whole number as a fraction. Again, the way you tell what fraction to rename it as, you look at the denominator in the subtrahend, and that tells you to change it into 6/6. If the denominator here was a 7, we would have changed this into 7/7. If this were a 2, we would have changed it into 2/2. So now that we have our like fractions, we subtract. 6 minus 5 is 1. 1/6 is not improper, and it cannot be reduced. To show you another example like number 14, if I have 1 minus 3/5, I can't take a fraction from a whole number, so I have to change the whole number into a fraction. I look here at this denominator to tell what fraction to change the whole into. Since this denominator is 5, I'm going to change the whole into 5/5. And I'll subtract 5/5 minus 3/5, which would give me 2/5. 2/5 is not improper, and it cannot be reduced.